alimony. What is alimony? Alimony is based on what is yours based on sweat equity. You may not have earned the money, but you helped the man get whatever it is that he got. And so the judge will say, yes, she owns 50% of what you made or what she helped you make. Well, that's all we're saying. After suffering at the hand of white people. I want you to, let's look at this, brothers and sisters. How long have we been asking, demanding, and protesting, praying for justice? How long? How long have we been marching, huh? How long have we fought, bled, and died in every theater of war for this country? Right. You couldn't find a more patriotic soldier than the black soldier. He is a man willing to give his life for people he could not even share the barracks with.
That's right.
You all saw a soldier story, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
With my man Denzel.
Yes.
Was that a segregated barrack?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that a black company?
Yes, sir.
But yet, those soldiers, black soldiers, were willing to give their life. For what? For freedom that they would come back to America and never have the benefit of enjoying. But we were patriotic, and no question about that. So, we fought in every theater of war. We've worked for white people for 390 years. Huh? Without a payday. We suffered Jim Crow laws, black laws, is that right?
Yes,
the Ku Klux Klan, racism, huh? Bigotry. Come on now, have we suffered this?
Yes, sir.
Do you know that when America went to war with Japan and won, America taxed her people to rebuild Japan, and now Japan is a power? She interned the Japanese people who were American, naturalized American citizens, and interned them in what they call concentration camps. And when they got out at the end of the war, the Japanese sued America for reparations, and it was given.
That's right.
America went to war with Germany. Again, we as black people in these segregated armies, navies, marines, and air force, we went and fought the Germans. Listen to what I'm saying. We gave our lives. But when the war was over, the German prisoners of war had more rights in America than the black soldier whom they sent to give their life on behalf of America.
That's right.
Yep.
And the American government taxed its people to rebuild Germany. And because some Jews suffered what they call a Holocaust in Germany, the American government made the German people pay the Jewish people reparations.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You didn't hear me. And it continues today. Do you know that we get upwards of $4 billion to Israel every year? Did they ask you?
Every year.
They say it's all right to take your money that you worked for and give $4 billion of it to Israel? Because, you know, these people suffered at the hand of Germany. Well, if Germany did that to Jews, so-called Jews, because they're not really Jews.
That's right. That's right.
But if Germany did it, why in the hell did they go to Palestine and rob the people of their land? They should have stayed in Germany and demanded land in Germany, not in Palestine. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They inserted themselves into Palestine, and today they are there in an apartheid kind of circumstance where they're robbing the Palestinian people of their right to their own land. See, these are the people you're dealing with. These are the people whose nature you don't know, and therefore you invest hope in their ability or their ultimate change of behavior to treat us right. Separation. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said to us that separation is a voluntary act done by two equals who realize that they cannot get along in peace, so they come to a decision that is best for us to separate. Go your way, I'll go mine. I want to close that point. The last thing I will say, y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
Separation was something proposed by the founding fathers. Did you know that? Did you know that the idea of separating blacks from America was in the head of Thomas Jefferson? And it was included in the Declaration of Independence? It's not there now because they took it out, but let me share with you the words of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson said this: when they were tied as colonies to the King of England, they wanted their freedom, and guess what premise they demanded their freedom on? You won't believe this, but this is the premise that they demanded their freedom on. Thomas Jefferson said, he, the King of England, has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life, liberty, in the persons of a distant people, Africans, who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere to incur miserable death in the transportation thither to America. Now here Thomas Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, is using the act of slavery on the part of the King of England, because it was he and them who introduced us into the Western Hemisphere as slaves. Did you know that?
That's right. Yes, sir.
But look at Thomas Jefferson. He's using the fact that we suffered at the hand of the King of England as an excuse, as a reason, as a justification to demand separation from Great Britain. Isn't that heavy? He continues, this piratical warfare, the opprobrium or shame of infidel, faithless powers, this is what he called the King of England, an infidel, is the warfare of the Christian King of Great Britain, the Christian King of Great Britain, determined to keep open a black slave market where men should be bought and sold. The king has prostituted his negative, i.e. his veto powers over colonial legislation for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain the execrable, which means utterly detestable commerce, and that this assemblage of horrors might want no fact of distinguished dye. In other words, the king did not want this to be exposed. He wanted to keep it hidden. He is now exciting those very people, African slaves, to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them, and murdering the people upon whom he also obtruded, which means to impose, upon them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people, the crime of slavery, the one people being Africans, with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another people, white colonists. Now you have to look at this, brothers and sisters. Here Thomas Jefferson is using the king's initiation of the crime of slavery as an excuse, a justification, and a reason for which the 13 colonies should separate from Great Britain. We were at the base of their righteous demand for freedom. Do they teach this in school?
No, sir.
Of course they don't. Now, Thomas Jefferson proposed that blacks should be colonized to such place as the circumstances of the time should render most proper. You see, because when the 13 colonies got their freedom, with all of their complaint and using slavery as a justification to fight for secession from the rulership of the King of Britain, they didn't stop slavery, they escalated slavery. See, the real deal, brothers and sisters, is they didn't give a damn about whether or not we were captive or captivated from Africa and made slaves. No, they didn't really care. They cared because the King of England was getting all the profit.
Right.
So when they were free from the King of England, they continued the slavery and escalated it. But at some point, Thomas Jefferson, because he saw and said as much, he said, I fear that before too many days or years pass over our head, that God is just, and his justice cannot sleep forever. He referred to us as a troublesome species of property. And that one day, because God is just, God's justice would intervene on our behalf. So before that happened, this is what Jefferson proposed. That blacks should be colonized to such place as the circumstances of the time should render most proper, sending them out with arms, implements of household, and of the handicraft arts, seeds, pairs of the useful domestic animals, etc., to declare them a free and independent people, and extend to them our alliance and protection till they shall have acquired strength. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we believe that after giving the slave master our sweat, our blood, and our labor for 400 years, that we are entitled to a separate state or territory of our own, either on this continent or elsewhere. And he also said that we believe that white people should supply and maintain our needs for 20 to 25 years until we can say have acquired strength.
That's right.
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not the first one with that idea.
That's right.
Thomas Jefferson had the same idea. This is history. Now, Abe. You know Abe, right?
Yes, sir.
Honest Abe the liar.
That's right.
Abraham Lincoln. Huh? Look at what he said. After winning the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, called into his office in Washington 5 Negro pastors who were former slaves. And this is what good old Abe said. He was being honest at this point. He said, and I quote, "You and we are different races." You think? We have between us a broader difference than exists between almost any other two races. Now this is Abe talking. Your race, he continues, suffer very greatly, many of them by living among us, while ours suffer from your presence. If this is admitted, he says, it affords a reason at least why we should be separated. Now this is the President of the United States, the 16th president, proposing the same thing that Jefferson proposed. But look at what the Negro head scratching, foot shuffling, same ones that you got today.
Yeah.
Stay away from the Muslims. They teach hate. We love our white folks. Stay away from Farrakhan. He'll teach you to hate white people. Listen, let me tell you something. If you don't hate white people after coming into the knowledge of what they have done, not only to us in America, but to people throughout the world, if you don't hate them by now, ain't a damn thing we can say to make you hate them.
That's right.
But these pastors, like you have today, boss, we don't want to separate. We want to stay right here with your good white folks. This is history, brothers and sisters. And that decision on the part of those prominent pastors who were former slaves rendered the generations that followed into the condition that you read about. Having water hoses poured on our people. Hangings and lynchings. Huh? Those pastors. You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad called the pastors his worst enemy. Why? Because this was the mentality, the slave mentality. It's not their fault, necessarily, because the white man outlawed you having a religion. Did you know that? They weren't allowed. We weren't allowed to read, and if anybody was found teaching us to read, we and them would be put to death. Did you know that? That was law.
Yes, sir.
It was not only, it was only when they found a way to amalgamate Christianity, so-called, because it's not real Christianity. It was only when they found a way to amalgamate some of the principles of so-called Christianity and make them compatible with slavery.
That's right.
Now I'm going to ask you, how did you become a Christian? Not that it's bad.
Good question.
But how did you become a Christian? Well, my mama made me. Really? And who made her? Okay, and who made her? And who made your great-great-grandmother a Christian? And since you were not allowed to read the Bible at the pain of death, then who made the original one that made you a Christian? And how could you be a Christian and a slave at the same time?
That's right.
Good question.
See, these are things that we've got to deal with. Let me finish up here. Now, how many of you know or have heard of the Dred Scott decision? Raise your hands. Raise them high, don't be ashamed. The Dred Scott decision referenced a case where a slave who had a slave master with whom he traveled, and he traveled to the free state of Illinois and lived there. And as a result of living there, he sued the state of Illinois, the circuit court, for his freedom. Now look, this is what the judge to whom he brought his case said. His name was Judge Taney. He said, the only matter in issue before the court, therefore, is whether the descendants of such slaves, when they shall be emancipated, now this is after emancipation, or who are born of parents who had become free before birth, are citizens of the state in the sense in which the word citizen is used in the Constitution of the United States. This being the only matter in dispute on the pleadings, the court must be understood as speaking in this opinion of that class only, that is, of those persons who are the descendants of Africans, who were imported into this country and sold as slaves. The plaintiff, he continues, having admitted that his ancestors were imported from